Good morning. Welcome to today's 10-minute Sunday school lesson. We are moving on in our series of worship, and we are done with the requirement for worship, which is faith. And now we're moving on to the next section, which is revolutionizing worship. And so I ask you to grab a pen and paper, pause the video, spend some time in prayer if you haven't done that yet. But let's go ahead and jump right in. So like I said, this next section is called revolutionizing worship by understanding God's holiness. I know that's a mouthful, but that is what we're basing this section on. And today we're going to go through a little bit of an introduction. I didn't change the date on here apparently, still says April 28th, but hopefully you know that it's actually May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. But we're going over the intro today as we get into this section. And we're going to, I don't know if I just said this or not, but we're going to be talking about some things today that we might repeat as we go through this because we're laying the groundwork for it. But it's important to understand these things about God's holiness, and they are worth talking about. So, God's holiness compels us to worship Him. All right? His holiness compels us to worship Him. So, what is the holiness, or what is God's holiness? Like, what does that actually mean? Well, holy, it means to be set apart. It means to be distinct. It means to be different. And when we talk about God being holy, we are saying that God is different than any other being in the entire universe. Well, what about Him makes Him so different? Well, one is that He is perfect. He is 100% perfect. And what determines right or wrong is what God has determined as right or wrong. He has set Himself as the standard for what is good and what is bad. And so, since He is the standard, He fulfills that standard that He has set. Now, what else about God? Well, He also does things that nobody else, no other thing can do. He's the creator of all things, and He is perfect and just. And He is majestic. He is His glory is beyond what we can comprehend. And so when we talk about worshiping Him because of His holiness, what we're talking about is giving glory and praise to Him. That is our response when we recognize the distinction that God holds to any other thing in all of creation, to any other thing that we could even possibly imagine. And this is the crazy thing about it is when we see things that are beautiful or unique, we give glory to those things. We give the proper attention and respect to those things. When someone performs a feat that is incredible, we're in shock and we are in awe over their ability to do that. You know, there's all these videos out there where people are doing crazy stuff, on skateboards and bikes and stuff like that. There's a lot of guys that are into parkour where they're running around and jumping off of walls and doing flips off of things and stuff like that. And you see these crazy videos of people doing things, and you watch it and your jaw drops and you think, that is incredible. And what do? Well, you show your friends, right? You show your family. And what you're doing is you're drawing attention to that thing and you're glorifying that thing because it's so incredible and it's really impressed you in that way. Well, God's holiness, you got to understand that His holiness, His distinction from all these other things, He is so unique and impressive, and His glory is so splendid that it compels us to worship Him. It goes beyond just being impressed and being astonished and amazed. It gets to the point where we actually submit ourselves and bow down and say, you are God, you are worthy of this adoration, right? So God's holiness compels us to worship Him. Well, therefore, understanding that God is holy allows us to worship Him as He really is. Now, you might look at that and say, well, that seems a little redundant. Well, the reason why this is important is because a lot of people, when they talk about worshiping God, they're doing it for different reasons. They're doing it because some people are doing it because they think if I go through this process of worshiping God, there's benefits that I can gain from this. Or somebody else might be thinking, well, we're supposed to do that. That's just what we do. Somebody else might do that because there are certain aspects of God that they really look up to and enjoy or appreciate about him. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But if you really want to worship God appropriately, the focus of that worship has to come from the fact that he is holy. That has to be the main focus of your purpose to worship him. All right, so God's holiness compels us to worship him. If we understand how holy he is, that's the response. That's the knee-jerk reaction, is to worship him. And understanding that he is holy and really clinging to that fact will allow us to worship him as he really is and as he is really meant to be worshiped. It'll remove a lot of the shallowness and the selfishness from worship that we see nowadays and go into the realm of true, genuine worship. All right, so here's a couple of passages that I think talk about the holiness of God, right? So Revelations 4, 8 through 11, 4 beasts had each of them 6 wings about him. They were full of eyes within, and they rest not day and night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. And when those beasts give glory and honor and thanks to him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So we see that we know that this is not talking about this is talking about end times here, right? This is the revelation of John here, future events, and it's talking about the seraphim that are circling the throne, crying out, Holy, 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 and that's their whole job, is to just fly around the throne and cry that out and declare that God is holy. And when we look at the end of this passage, we see there's something here that it makes God holy. Well, he's created all things. Can we say that about anything else or anybody else? Absolutely not. So because he is the creator and he has done this feat, us, the creation, should give him praise and honor and glory, as we see in verse 11, and we should worship him, right? So here's another passage, Isaiah 6, 1 through 3. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. Does sound familiar, right? With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. One cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And just like we observed in the passage in Revelation, God has set up these seraphims to circle his throne and to cry, Holy, holy, holy. And this is right and this is proper because God is that holy. And so as we continue through the rest of this section of the series, as we go through the next few lessons and go through that, I hope that we will be able to explore and understand better the holiness of God and why that is so important for you to be able to worship him appropriately. I want to thank you for joining us for our 10-minute Sunday school lesson today. God bless you. Have a good day.